covering a very dark corner of society, a very dark subject. Pedophile networks, how this nasty thing is used in bribery to keep politicians, military people in line. And most probably, I will say, this could be a way, the reason why we are seeing so few whistleblowers in all the areas of our society. Because when you reach a certain level in society, you need to do some bad things. And it's not only call girls which you're filmed with. There are also the next level for those who really are in power. This is covered. Jimmy Savile is the most known from the Main Street news. They also tried actually to start an investigation in the British Parliament because there were also a lot of problems with pedophilic networks in the British government. I can guarantee you that nothing will come out of this investigation. The alternative media have also looked very much into this. There have been the Pizzagate, which have been very heavy in the alternative media, about John Podesta, who have been an advisor for Bill Clinton, Obama, Hillary Clinton, who is absolutely at the top of the power pyramid in the United States. He was so stupid, he let a housing magazine into his apartment, who have taken photos of his nice furniture, his pictures on the wall, which were small ladies, small girls, really disgusting photos, but huge paintings on his wall, and there were teddy bears at his bed, and this is a 60-year-old man or something like that. So no wonder that questions are asked when you see pictures like this. So in the organizing team, we thought we need to cover this subject, and this is a very difficult subject to cover. So we were very fortunate to have a specialist who would come, and that's Carine, who unfortunately have the destiny to work with people like that. Yeah.
That's not the difficulty. The difficulty are the governments that are refusing to do something about it.
Yeah. So we are hoping we can put some light on this very dark subject. So please give a warm welcome to Carine Hutsebaut.
Okay. Okay, you just have to click them?
Yeah, you just click on them, yeah.
Okay, I'll do that later. Okay. Good morning, everybody. I know it's very difficult to start your morning with a subject like this, but we are all concerned in this. I first want to thank all the people from the organization who are very kind and very willing to do exceptional things, and they do it for free. This is how our society was a little bit before. We would like to go back to a society where we do things for each other without thinking about money. I also want to thank Chantal and Geert and Chris, who helped me make a little movie, because I'm a really zero in computers. So that I hope the message I would bring today will stay with you for the rest of your life. I would like to start with the subject anger. Anger is a very, very powerful fuel for human beings. Anger, in fact, is a transformed grief. Grief for dreams that are broken, not getting enough love during childhood. Too much love is also a problem. Grief for losing people you love. And grief is a passive feeling. Grief is you lose somebody, you're grieving, but you can't do anything about it. It's painful, and it takes a long time to get over your grief. Now, some of us are able to transform grief into anger. And anger has two different points and perspectives. You can use anger to do good things, to be whistleblowers. You can use anger to create things, art, computer things, everything. Anger is a fuel. But some people use anger to get even with this sentiment, this feeling of they did wrong to me and I want to get even. They're looking for balance. Now, in all what we see of child abuse and violence in general, there is anger involved. And I would like to show you a little film, and I hope the music will stay in your head for the rest of your lives. I've put some pictures in it about of victims that for this little movie are not too gruesome. You'll see another one a bit later. And I would like you to listen very carefully to the text of this. It is Les Misérables. Hope it works. Oh yeah. Where's the sound? Oh.
Singing the song of angry men. It is the music of a people who will not be slaves again. When the beating of your heart echoes the beating of the drums, there is a life about to start when tomorrow comes. Will you join in our crusade? Will be strong and stand with me? Beyond the barricade, is there a world you long to see?
Then join in the fight that will give you the right to be free.
Do you hear the people sing the song of angry men? It is the music of the people who will not be slaves again. When the beating of your heart echoes the beating of the drums, there is a life about the sun tomorrow comes. Really hear all you can hear, so that our banner may advance. Some will fall and some will live. Will you stand up and take your chance? The blood of the martyrs, the water that nails the cross. Do you hear the people sing the song of angry men? It is the music of the people who will not be slaves again. When the beating of your heart echoes the beating of the drums, there is a life about to start when tomorrow
Now what we see here is people getting angry because we all feel they are trying to make slaves of us again. We will not accept this. And what is easier to bring slavery than breaking children as young as possible? A broken child is an easy target to become slave. Then they introduced the care system, where we can see that everybody is labeled. And you have two parts. We call them kisas, knights in shining armor. And you have the other side who becomes aggressor, violent behaviorist. The kisas are the people who are trying to help other victims from their own living of being a victim. They try to help others. And then you have the other part who is so filled with anger and retaliation, they want to get even. And this is the part that becomes itself aggressors, sexual aggressors. Most of the children who will become aggressors, violent offenders, have their fantasies around 7 years old. This is very early. They have very violent fantasies. And if nothing is done to these fantasies, they develop this in the years. And they'll find food to feed their anger on the internet, in books, in magazines, wherever they can to feed that anger. So anger is in fact the devastating fuel, while anger can also be a positive point. What is clear in this little movie is that we have to get out of this idea that others will help us. We are strong people on ourselves. We can interfere ourselves before it becomes too dangerous. I made a mistake 20 years ago in my first book, Child Hunters, where I said that victims need a statute. Because in this kind of violence against children, like sexual abuse, it is inherent that the victim thinks it's guilty. And all these years, in fact, because it was not clear in the Justice Department, well, probably the victim asked for it, and all these years we had Freud, who in fact did a very bad job in this part of the psychiatry. We blame a little bit the victim, and the victim itself blames itself. I must be bad, I must be a bad child, I must be unworthy because this man does this to me, or maybe my father does this to me, or a family member. So we came to the point that indeed the victim got a statute. What they didn't read in my book is that as soon as you have this statute, you have to get out of it to start your life again. Because it is not true that victims of child sexual abuse are damaged forever. That's not true. But governments like this. If you stay in this statute of victim, you rely on the government. You are dependent of others. And they like it. You're not a slave. I'm sure many people here have been victim of child sexual abuse and got out of it. Okay, this marks children, that's for sure. But it is not the end of the world. They have been victims, but they aren't anymore. What we see now in worldwide is that they want to keep these victims in this statute of victim. And then you have from these things, I have victims coming in therapy saying, well, my exams weren't good at school, but what do you want? I have been a victim of child abuse. Well, each time I tell them, no, it's not because you have been a victim of child abuse, it's because you did not study enough. So this child abuse is even abused by some victims. Because I've been a victim, all of a sudden, I'm not able to do anything anymore. And everything is the fault of this abuse. This is not true. These are excuses. And we cannot allow that victims use the same excuses as offenders do. Because that's what they do. They use all kinds of excuses. There are circles, and I work as well with victims for 30 years, so over 30 years, as with child abusers and child killers. And you see that with these child killers and these child abusers, they work in circles. And a circle is very, very individual. For instance, most of the time they have been victims in their childhood, but not always. They start by feeling bad. I don't feel well this morning. They don't know why, and they don't look, how do I get in this situation? Somebody else is going to pay for this. So they start an argument with their partners or their family, and at the end their family rejects them because they don't understand. This gives them the authorizations to make a second step. And the second step is they go to a bar and go drinking, which reduces their breaks and their limits. They start arguments in the bar again, and then they're thrown out. They feel very, very bad. Is there a problem?
No, just continue.
They feel very bad, and nobody loves me. I hate everybody. Somebody's gonna pay for them, for this, for my bad feeling. They go over in to go out, and they look for an easy target. They search an easy target to relieve their own frustration. They find a victim, and they have this feeling of, you're going to pay for my bad feeling. We all do this in a certain way. For instance, I talked yesterday with somebody, and we have to imagine on our level how this works. You're working very hard for your boss. Really, you make over hours and you do whatever he asks you to do. But he's never happy. He's always commenting. It's never enough, and you feel frustrated. But you can't be angry at him, because then you risk to lose your job. So you have to find a way to get out of this stress and find balance. You drive home very aggressively, and you enter your home where you see this marvelous, beautiful antique vase. And you take this vase and you throw it against the wall, and you feel, whew. Now, years later, still, you will think, oh my God, it's a pity for that beautiful, worthy vase, but I felt so relieved. So the association will more be relief from what you did than sadness for what you destroyed. Child killers work the same way, but of course in an exaggerated level. So when they go out, they find a child, they target, they isolate it, they abuse it, they rape it. Sometimes they kill these children, and they feel the same relief. I'm imbalanced again, because before I had no control over anything. Now I feel in control. I'm balanced again. Of course, especially the first time they kill, they feel some kind of remorse. But they find as fast excuses for their behavior. And then they start minimizing their behavior, because look at these wars. In these wars, they are killing thousands of children. So what does one child means? It's not that bad. They try to take back their life temporarily. And because they did not attack their real problems, these frustrations start to build up again. And at the end, they feel bad again. They go out to a bar, and with the whole circle restarts. What I do in therapy is drawing their personal circle. How comes you came to a point to rape a child and kill a child, or kill a child, and how can we prevent this from happening again? I teach them that at the third red flag, the environment has to intervene. So they have to give me a list of at least 10 people who will follow them not personally, but who will observe them in their behavior, and who can tell this violent predator, watch out, you passed your third red flag. And then they have to go over their circle again. Okay, I have to adjust. If they pass 5 red flags, the environment has to call me. And I go see this person before he acts out again. These are things you learn in years of observing, listening, really carefully listening to violent offenders. Then I observed the prevention programs to avoid children becoming victims. And I said several times, already 20 years ago in the media, I think that these prevention programs are invented by pedocriminals, because it is not up to a child to say no. It's up to the adult. We saw it in some picture. It's up to you to say no. It's not up to a child. I have children raped at the age of 3 months. How do you want them to say no? How do you want children of 3, 4 years old know the law? And they continue on putting this burden on victims. It's up to you to say no. Then you have a child sex offender in therapy, and he says, well, the child didn't say no. Oh, well, it means that it's okay then to rape it. There are all these misunderstandings. For instance, I've had child rapists that say, well, the child liked it. And then I think, well, who am I to say that? They are not all violent. I mean, there are offenders that are nice with children, they caress them, but nevertheless they're abusing them. And so I was thinking, yeah, who am I to think that maybe it's not allowed? And I said, and how do you know the child liked it? Well, it was laughing. Oh. Then I had the opportunity to talk to the victim a few weeks later, and I said, well, I know it's difficult, I know, but can you tell me what you did when this person started to touch you? And then they are very embarrassed, which I understand. And at the end, she said, well, I was laughing, I was so embarrassed, I didn't know what to do. I was stressed, and I was laughing from nervousness. And I saw that what the offender says is right. His perception is right, the child is laughing, but the interpretation is wrong. So they don't always lie, they lie to themselves. They consider this, you see, the child likes it because it's laughing and it's giggling. You learn, the best universities, of course, are the criminals. There are different. First of all, what is pedophilia? I don't like the word, because pedophilia means loving children. I suppose we all have children or know children. We are pedophiles. But pedocriminals are people, adults, who love having sex with children, and that's something else. You have incest, where family members abuse a child. And it can be brothers who abuse sisters, but even sisters who abuse brothers. And that's maybe for women the hardest part. There 4% of pedosexuals are women. I had a very hard time accepting this. I thought that it didn't exist 20 years ago. I thought really that women don't abuse children. I can assure you, I never worked with women. I think I would just knock them down. But because we are, as women, we are the symbol of protection and you know, and, well, this has been scattered, I can assure you. But I did work with a lot of children being abused by females. And I can assure you, it's hard to say because I'm a woman, women are more cruel and vicious than men in sexual abuse. I heard things I've never heard from men doing. I'll give you a small example. I had a little boy, he was 4 years old, abused by teachers in his school, female teachers, and networks, but the females, they put a little elastic around his little penis. And when the penis started to blow up, they took the little elastic and dropped it. It was very, very painful. These are these little small things I've never heard doing by men. Okay, men are very, very evil too in what they do with children, but there is something else with women. And in these networks, I'm going to talk about a little later, from Pizzagate and Saville and Dutroux and Les Ballets Roses, Les Ballets Bleus, women are as much involved as men. You have the individual criminals who work on their own and abuse children, abduct children, and they can be teachers in schools, they can be fathers, they can be, you know, can be anyone. Their fantasies are their own. They don't share them with others. And then you have group offenders, which means that you have these rape gangs, we hear that more and more, where they share the same fantasy of raping women or children, but that it is not a network. And then you have the networks, and you have to consider this as stamp collectors. You know, they go worldwide. If you have a stamp you absolutely want, you go to Japan, to China, to Australia, to have that stamp and not another. Then we're talking about the high-level networks, where they share victims, children, between them, and where they organize group sessions. One has to profile these people to know why they do this and how they do this. There are two big groups, the organized group and the impulsive group. Impulsive groups are people who are socially very handicapped. They are not very skilled in social contacts and all that. Most of the time they are not married, they live alone, they are a bit considered as weird, but on first sight you don't think they are dangerous. Then you have the organized ones, and the organized most of the time are manipulative. They are married, they have children, they have high-ranking jobs. They are very social, they are in Lions, they are in the Kiwanis, they are, you know, and these are the people where you think, no, that's not possible. He killed a child? No, that's not possible. And they engage in organizing barbecues for the whole street, and they are always there, and perfect men. The problem is with these organized ones, if you're not able to let the criminal tell you where he hides the victims, you will never find them, never. Because all this is part of their fantasy and their organization to get rid of the victims after use. The last man you saw on the picture is Christian van Geloven. He was from the Netherlands. I described him because he was so intelligent and so vicious and so violent that, in fact, he represents all what is under it. So if you understand somebody like that, you know how the others function too. And I have been following him in a French prison for 2-3 years. In France, they wanted to restore the death penalty because of him. He killed the 2 little girls you saw beneath, 10 years old. And when you see these autopsies, you can't believe this. It is unimaginable. So I had different options at the time, because I studied in different universities in the United States, in France, in England and all that. But, you know, these are all theories, and the thinking of psychiatrists and all that. It's okay, give me a frame, but it doesn't say what these people really do, why they do it, how they think, how they feel, what their backgrounds are. So I thought, okay, I have to talk to these killers. And I followed 15 gruesome killers in Europe for over 10 years to understand, why do you do this? No, I don't have many skills, but one of them is I can make people talk. I listen to them. I don't judge them. I'm not a judge. I judge what they do, but I will not judge them as a human being. That's not my role. Now, this man, there are things I didn't put in my book because it's too horrible. But you feel when you talk to this kind of killers that there is a duel going on. He profiles me, that's for sure. He wants to know where my weaknesses are. He wants to know where my strengths are. And so these people are provocative to hurt you and look where you will react. And somebody asked me yesterday, what do you think about shape-shifting? I don't know what to think about it. What I do know is that you can see people change in front of your eyes. And this man was one of these. I spoke to him one day, and it was okay. We went through everything because it was before the trial, and he's a very nice man. And I talked to friends of him, his and family, and they couldn't believe it when they saw his picture on television that he was arrested for one of the most horrible crimes in France on children. And the next day, he came in, they brought him in prison, and I thought, this is not the same man as yesterday. What's going on? They're mistaken. Physically, it wasn't even the same man. And the eyes were black, completely black. I couldn't get into it. It was really frightening. And even the features of his face were different. But I didn't show anything, and he was sitting just in front of me, and he was very aggressive. This was the man who killed. The other one, I saw the day before, was the man everybody meets in the street and socially and all that. And then he wanted to shock me, get me off my feet. But I was only in my 30s, and I was alone doing this, in fact. I couldn't talk to somebody else. What do you do in that circumstances and all that? So I knew from the autopsies that the experts were wondering what happened to these children. There were great openings and leisure, how do you say it? Wounds inside the wombs of these little girls. That were unexplainable, between the intestines, for instance, and the vagina. They couldn't explain. But I didn't ask him anything about it, but it must be that he guessed what I was thinking. And all of a sudden, he said, I pushed my arm in it just to there. And all of a sudden, I saw all these documents from the autopsies, and I knew what he was talking about, and I was thinking, don't react, don't show emotion, don't show emotion. Stay zen, stay cool. I can assure you that's not easy. I wanted to slap him. But I stayed very cool, and I said, what did this do to you? How did you feel about this? Just like that. And he was off the hook for a moment, and then he grabbed my right eye on the table and he squeezed it. And I thought, he's still looking for reactions, weaknesses of me. So his other hand was on the other side of the table, and I was thinking, what do I do? Do I pull back? No, I left that arm there, and I've put my left hand on his hand, softly, gently, and he started to vibrate, and he was scared. And what I want to say with this is that they are so weak. And once you know how they function, whether it are these people in the Pizzagate or others, they are so weak. They look threatening, but they are not. And I discovered that these people, on a rational level, are far more smarter than I am. And it is proven their IQ most of the time is above 130. Now I happen to have 134, but nevertheless, they are smarter, much smarter. And but on the level of emotion, they are stuck between 3 and 6 years old. So don't ever argue with these people on a rational level. You won't win. But bring them to the emotional level, and they melt in your hands. And that's what I do when I have to go question them, interrogate them. I'm talking to you now, so there's no difference. But I know where I can bring them in an area where they are lost. And how does this come? Because these children, these people, when they were children, they have been mistreated on several levels of the 5 primary abuse items. And that are the emotional abuse. You're ugly, nobody's gonna love you. You're fat, you're unworthy. The psychological level, parents locking their children up in the basement, in the dark, without food, without drinks, not knowing, these children don't know when will I get out of here, in the dark, they're frightened. Then you have the physical level of abuse, burning children with cigarettes, with irons, with punching them, hitting them. That's the physical level. And then you have the, and that's much underestimated, drugs, alcohol, or medication abuse by one or both parents or caretakers. For children, drunk parents are very, very confusing. They have the feeling it's their fault that their parents are like this, like children are loyal to their parents. And then you have the 5th one, and that's the sexual abuse of children. Sexual abuse often has the 4 other levels in the same abuse. Often the father or the uncle or I don't know, the abuser is drunk because it takes away a lot of their restraints. The message to the child is, you're worth nothing. You're a sex object, and I'm going to use you like a condom. And they do it in remote places, secretly, which is then the more psychological abuse. Of course, there is physical harm when children are raped, certainly at young ages. So you have very often the 5 in one trauma. We know that when children are victim of at least 3 of the 5 items, the chances are high that they suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder on long term. And that's where, this agony is there, this grief is there, this pain is there, the confusion is there, and they don't get out of this, because if they don't have help to get out of this as soon as possible, they take it with them in their adulthood. And there they try to give, to try to model all these confusing feelings. And well, then I have to go back to the vase. Somebody's gonna pay for my hurt. And they dare not take somebody of their level, because the risk is evident that they lose, and then again they feel down. And surely they're not gonna take a bigger person than themselves, because then sure they will lose their self-esteem even more. So they take lower level, for at least have the feeling of release and being balanced again, just like we should do when we broke our vase. The first time is always difficult for somebody to rape or to kill children. But from the second victims, it's finished. They don't care anymore. So this is to give you an idea of what child sex offenders and killers are. There are 6 categories in each of the 2 groups. And most of the people are pedosexuals in regression. This means if their life is all right, nothing's going to happen to children. They are married, they have children, they have a good job, but then when it starts to go wrong and they feel rejected and they feel not whole and their self-esteem goes down, they start looking out for satisfaction on another level. This group is the easiest to treat. In 18 months, they don't even remember how they started abusing children. There is a second group who is the anger rapist, more difficult to treat, but feasible. Then you have the retaliation rapist, to get even. You can help them too with very adapted therapy. You have the sexual rapist. You have the sadistic rapist, which can't be helped anymore. And you have the fixated rapist, child rapist. Now, the fixated rapist, you can't do anything at all. The prognoses are very, very bad. They only get aroused by children. They are unable to get sexually aroused by peers, by women, nor men. And in general, all these types of rapists make between 120 and 150 victims during their sexual active life. That means between 14, 15 years and 65. From those 150 victims, at least 10% will become himself or herself a rapist, making, again, between 120 and 150 new victims. And that's what I said 20 years ago. We are going to end up with an upside-down pyramid if we don't act. Now with the internet, as for me, it's too late. It's too late. There are too many victims, and our society is completely busted with people who are abused, and governments just let go. There's one picture in, "We'll protect you because the government won't." Well, I can assure you the government will not help. Worse, the APA, American Psychiatric Association in the United States, who writes the psychiatric Bible, the DSM-4, the DSM-5, with all kinds of disorders. They invent a lot of disorders since 2004. But they are now advocating to make child sexual abuse a nature, like homosexuality, like lesbians. It's just their nature. I can assure you it's a lie. It is a choice. Pedosexuality is not genetically determined. It is a choice. And all the criminals have told me after 6 months, when you have their confidence and they know you're not abusing their confidence, they all said the same to me. Whether it were simple touching a child, attachments, or it were torture and killing. They all admitted it was a choice. I did it because I liked it. And then we come into the more gruesome part. And that's the organized networks. Why organized networks? Because the only taboo left now is child sexual abuse. Before you had, when a minister or a president was homosexual, wow, they could blackmail him because it was not accepted. When they went to orgies with women, adults, they were blackmailable. When they had out marriage relationships, they were targets to blackmail. But all this, you know, now we don't care. Lewinsky was allowed to suck the penis of Clinton. They're adults. Why we don't care? So there's only one left, and that's child sexual abuse. A society will never accept this. And I know it because there has been anthropological studies on tribes, really all tribes, where they observed what happened if somebody touches a child. And these people are immediately expelled of the group, which is terrible because in these tribes, in the Amazon, it was in New Guinea and in Central South America, you can't survive. Without your tribe, you can't survive. But you are expelled of the group for at least 2 years. That's a very important message to the victim, because most of the victims think it's their fault. When you punish the offender, it is clear to the victim that it was not its fault, and that's 70% of the healing already. So after 2 years, they are allowed to come back in the tribe. They are not stigmatized, but they know that they don't have to do it again, because then it will be forever, and they can't survive. So it is absolutely necessary to punish wrongdoers, and especially people who rape children and who touch children in an inappropriate way. It is really necessary to do this. Not only for the offender, it's too easy for them to say, well, the victim, she asked for it. I have had offenders telling me, yeah, but she asked for it. She was in the back of my car, 5 years old, her legs open, and I could see in the mirror her underpants. Well, yeah, child was asking for. Well, you know, this is not a real child. It's a little woman, in fact. All these excuses, I heard them. It are all false excuses. So it is important, they have to be punished. It doesn't have to be a punishment of 20 years, depending on the crime. Sometimes it's enough 6 months, but for a child, it is really so important that the child sees he's going to prison. He must be the bad one, and not me. It is very important for a victim to know where to put the blame. Well, we see, I don't know in Denmark, but I'm sure it's the same here because it's worldwide, that they almost don't punish child sex offenders anymore. You really have to kill them, the children, and then maybe they get sentences. And this is really, really one of the reasons I wanted to stop my job. Because, okay, I'm having this speech here now. I've had hundreds of them. And what's the result? It's going worse. Because I am not able to take these people and put them in prison. Our governments, our justice departments we gave this power to them. Before we just knocked each other down. And that's where they decided we'll make a justice department and we'll do your job, the jobs of the people. But they don't. They don't do their jobs. And they're not skilled. They don't know what is a child sex offender. They don't know what a victim is. And so, well, you know, There, I can feel that there are orders from somewhere to drop this, to just get over with it. And the victims are all left to themselves, confused, angry, grieving, all these feelings that block their creativity, that block their self-esteem, their own thinking. And that's what they want. They are very easy slaves, very easy. And in this childcare areas, all these children are noted they're put in categories. And it's just a pool where the others can say, okay, this is an aggressive one, we can use him for bombing. And this one is a victim-like, we can use it there. We can give it medication for the rest of its life, and it's bringing money, and you can see that. Now I know that a lot of people have very good intentions to go in healthcare, in child protection services, police departments, but most of them are cowards. They have to do things they don't want to do, and they feel in their soul, in their heart, this is not right. But imagine I don't follow the rules, I lose my job. What is your job compared to tens of people being raped? What is your job worth when you're a police officer and you're not doing the things you have to do because your boss tells you so? Why are you doing this job? And we can only change the whole system from within, saying no. When police come to my office or my home, and they say, we want to speak to you, I can feel, oh, something's wrong. Can we come in? And then I say, do you have a search warrant? We're not going to start like this, are we? I said, oh yes, we have to follow every rule. You have to follow rule. If you want to come in, go get a search warrant. And then they're lost. They don't know what to do. There's a stalker now, 6 years. It's going on for 6 years. Every X weeks I have the police at my door because he's accusing me of all kinds of things, which each time I can prove it's untrue. So there is a file of 1 meter already with the judge. And then the police comes. Well, your associations, your documents are not okay. I know with my associations, with my status in my associations, I have all interest of being completely in order with the system. But my association, ICMAC, International Center for Molested and Abducted Children, exists since '94. And in that time, nobody was bothering about children being lost and disappeared and raped. And in my statutes, I have put that I have the right to research criminals abroad and in the country, that I have the right to, all this was in my statutes. And then when the true case break out in 1996, the police department copied my statutes for their official search group. And they are stuck now because it's not allowed anymore to put this in your, the description of what your association does. It's not allowed anymore to search for criminals. It's only the police that can do that. Now they're stuck because this is from '94. So they're trying to find ways to stop my organization. And so when they come at my door with one excuse or another, I tell them, I have nothing to say to you. If you want to know, go to the judge. The whole file is there. Go there. Because they take my time and they are trying to intimidate you all the time. They tried to kill me in 2000 in an operation room. I've been threatened by the networks. You cannot imagine. You cannot imagine. It goes so far. But if you stay very close to yourself, they can do you nothing at all. There was the so-called underground police department, Belgium, the Netherlands, Italy. That's what they told me. And they wanted me to drop one of my victims because she was a prime witness in a an awful case in the Netherlands. I said, no, I never drop victims, and I will never do that. So for months they have been calling me, and I heard it was a kind of police, because I heard the noises of a car, you know, police car inside. And I already took contact with the Justice Department in Belgium and asking, does that exist, this underground thing? Belgium, the Netherlands, Italy? The minister was not aware of it. But that doesn't mean that doesn't exist, you know, like Gladio. We heard this from James Corbett. All these things do go on underground. And it came to a point when this woman called me. She said, we know you're going to Eindhoven. I don't know how they know. I don't care anyway. You're not going to get there alive. And then I say, well, we'll see that. I dropped the phone. And after a while, she was desperate, and she said, can I ask you a question? I recorded this, but it was with my cell phone, so I had to record it with another device. She said, Mrs. Hutsebaut, don't you like to live? I said, it's not that I don't like to live, but if I have to die tomorrow, I'm ready for that. What about you? It was all silent. She didn't know what to do. And I just stopped it. It is not difficult. It is not difficult to silence them. They are so fucking weak. You know, I was a few months ago, I'm not allowed to talk about it, but who will forbid me? I was with the Justice Minister from Belgium, Koen Geens. You may know his name, because if you search for it, you will see. He surely is a Jesuit. You can see it on his face already. With parents whose daughter disappeared 7 years ago. You see her a little later in the other presentation. Elke. It's their only daughter. This father, they should put a monument for this man. He's incredible, tenace. And the investigation is a ruin, absolutely a ruin. And so I said to this man, to the father, you should make your list with complaints and propositions to the parliament. Put it in the open again, because we are not allowed in Belgium, after the Dutroux case, to talk about disappearances. We don't have them anymore. I suppose we don't have children anymore, because anyway, they don't disappear anymore. And when I asked a friend of mine who is a police officer, that I said, I'm threatened, death threats, I have a lot of them. And he said, well, I'm going to see with my boss what we can do to find out who it is. And a week later, he called me and said, I'm not allowed to do it. Because since the Dutroux case, we don't have these cases anymore. That's our government, where I pay taxes for. We all pay taxes for them. They don't do their jobs. And because it's too difficult for this man to put it in the right words, I've put it in the right words, I sent it to him, and I said, go to a politician. You know, as we saw the presentation of the man just before. I was a bit late, but there's marathons in the city, where he advises to contact your local politicians and do it, really do it. You have to push them to a point where they're afraid to pick their phone, afraid to open their emails, because you have to put them before their responsibilities. So I said, okay, you go to one of your representatives political in your area and ask that he asks questions to the Minister of the Justice Department in public. I have the email, so I can prove. This man, who is from he is from the Socialist Party, has to ask questions to the Christian Party. So they are not one party. And I have a mail where the socialist politician asks the minister, isn't it better you receive these people in your office, because otherwise we have to treat this on a public place. So you see, they are doing even above all these political colors. They do everything to keep it out of the public. And so we had an appointment with the guard of the Justice Department, and I was listening all the time, and I heard him lying to these parents. I said nothing. Sometimes I said, you as a minister, you as a lawyer, and as a minister of the Justice Department, you should know you cannot intervene in individual files. And he looked at me with hate. I find it embarrassing when people look with hate towards me, but not from this kind of people. I know, I hid it. And after an hour, I heard him say to the parents, never say that you have been here because I will deny it. I had that written on tape, stupid one. And then I bent over his office and I said, listen very carefully to me, Mr. and not Minister, Mr. Haynes. Good people disobey bad laws. And he was looking with hate. And I left. What I want to tell you is, stop being afraid. They thrive on doubts and fear of people. When you just stand up, because why am I not in prison? Why don't I have not one official complaint against me in all these 35 years? Must be that they can't catch me, do they? Never be unfaithful to yourself and your feelings. That's all I ask. And it's so simple. Maybe you think, well, no, I risk losing my job. Well, take the consequences. What are you going to do if you're aware of awful things, but you think, I better shut my mouth. Maybe you have been witness of a crime, but you think, I'm not going to interfere in this because I don't want to have problems. Okay, what are the consequences when you denounce? Well, you'll have some problems, probably, or maybe not. But what are the consequences of not denouncing what you saw happening? That for the rest of your life, you will be saying, my God, I should have gone to the police. For the rest of your life. I've been contacted from the Netherlands for a cold case, and I saw on the crime scene that, whoa, this is not meant to be. It's about an 11-year-old boy during a Scouts camp that has been murdered, found murdered at 1.5 kilometers of the camp. But these people tell a story when they kill somebody. And it's just a skill to learn that language. So I saw on the crime scene that he has remorse. It wasn't a purpose to kill that child, but it's dead. It's killed. It has been killed anyway. Then, now they called me back because in the meantime it's a cold case. And I said it 10 years ago. The only way to reach the killer is by the media, because we don't know who it is. And you can do that, but don't let the parents do it, because we have somebody here who feels really, really sorry for the way it turned out. And if he sees parents, he's going to close up even more. Not the police, because he's afraid, he knows he has to go to prison. Take somebody very neutral and ask him to go and contact a priest, a therapist, a friend, and ask to join him to go to the police. Because, I said, and now they've published it, it's not even a month ago in the newspaper. We are waiting for the reactions, it can take a while. Because this man was in his 30s. Imagine that he's not detected, and he's 85, and he dies. He gave himself more than 50 years of prison sentence because he's there with his remorse. If he denounces himself and takes the consequences of what he did, he'll probably get 10 years to pay his bill. Because a society is so much softer than some of the criminals. Society is easy. It only wants 3 things. First, it wants punishment for the wrongdoers. It wants reparations, if possible, not only to the victim, but for whole society. And relapse prevention. That's all a society wants. And not even that can be handled by Justice Department. That's very sad, very sad. So I want to show you now the more evil part of what people do to each other. I don't know, is it gonna work now? No? I'm not gonna touch it, you know. You'll hear the same song, but it has been sung by different countries, even Japan, in Japanese, in German, in Hungarian, in all these languages. But you will only see pictures. There are pictures that are very disturbing, I tell you. Part of the pictures are what I found on the internet on medieval torture. And why was I looking for this? Because I have a victim from whom you'll see the pictures too. She's 30 years of age, and she's in the network since her 4th, run by her parents. And that is something that comes back very often. Very often it are constructions companies. And her father worked as a mechanic for a construction company, which rings the alarm bells for me. Why constructions companies? Because they need authorization to destroy a building and put another one. They need the authorization from the government to build big apartments on certain locations where maybe it's not allowed. And to blackmail the people on the right post. This is the way to do it, and that's to abuse children. They have pictures of it, they have films of it, and you know, then they go to that person and they say, well, we need an authorization to, oh no, it's not possible, and then they just slide the pictures. And what do you think? Well, maybe I can arrange something. That's one part of it. Her parents are building now their 4th big villa without any mortgage. And the invoices that I asked her, try to find invoices. The invoices that come in from the new building in very, very expensive locations, they are all on the name of that company, the building company. So since she's 4, she's been rented, and many parents do this, to have a luxury life. The girl I was talking about, why they threatened me from the police department, also, she was always dressed like a princess, very expensive dresses at the age of 3-4 years old. Her parents never had to work. Her mother was a hairdresser, but she never worked. And her father was... It's important. It's not because I want to do denigrating about these people, but these networks pick them out. They know what you have on your bank account. They know everything about you. And so they send people to you, and you know, you rent your children. They rent their children, and they live very luxuriously on their children. She was 30 years when she came to my office after an interview I had on the radio. And it took a while before she started talking. And I know I was in a wheelchair because I had broken my knee and my foot. And anyway, I was going to stop my job, but okay, it's not working that way. And she showed me her wrists and her ankles. There was not a piece of skin on it anymore. By being hanging in chains. At a point, she showed me her breast. You will see the picture. I was allowed to take pictures without her face, with a deep cuts in it from a knife. And I said, I can't help you. I'm not a nurse. And I said, you have to go to the hospital. No hospital. They're gonna call the police, and then I'll be dead. Is this the society we are paying for? Is this the society we're living in? These people can go nowhere. They hide at my place. Even when I was in Spain, 2,000 kilometers away, I had people, young women with even children, coming to my place to hide from these networks because they don't know where to go. You know, I don't have government subsidies. I have no money. I make the money with the books I sell and with goodwill, as all these people here do. And all these people from the Open Mind Conference doing the thing you have to do. So I do the things I have to do because I have to. And that's why still I continue. But this woman talked, she had a wound here, you will see it, and a big wound here, I think. And I said, from what, she said, I can't tell you, it are this, when you're chained, and I started to look into attributes on the internet while she was there, because she was hiding between Christmas and after New Year, all these days she was at my place. And we started looking for sexual attributes because I couldn't explain these wounds. And she was saying, no, not that. I said, but where do I have to look for then? Well, it's something else. They make these iron things themselves. And I was searching, and I come on a site of medieval torture. And then I saw it. I saw what they made, these iron things they put on their heads and on their foot, and really heavy metal things in the ground. And she said, that's it. And it fit the wounds I found on her wrists and her body. You will see her back. I prepare you a bit. Where you see wounds like this from scrapping on altars, you know, while they rape. The skin is gone, but also on her arms from being against the wall, all the skin is gone. But she was following a course to be a nurse, and she had big problems because, of course, she was always like this, which is not allowed when you do nursery work. You have to have your sleeves up because you have to disinfect all the time. And so she was having trouble because then they would see her wounds. And I said to her, well, tell that to your abusers that you are going to get in trouble. I'll show you the picture, what the result was. I better have shut up. What did they do the next time? They put her elbow into a bank, how do you call it? With the screw, a bank screw? You know, where you screw things to... Huh?
I don't know what's in English. A vice?
Kind of, yeah, a big one. And her elbow was like this. I said, no, you really, has been scratched. I said, you have to go to the hospital. I can't help you. No way, no way. So her whole body is full of scars and wounds, and it's going on. And in the meantime, they were threatening me. I have it on my computer, letters like that, per email. Drop her, because if she dies, it's going to be your fault. And then I answer, if she dies, it's your fault, not mine. You know, just don't get scared, because they are cowards. They are, well, if the consequence is that they drove you from the road, okay. But how am I going to live with myself if I drop a person like that? What are the consequences for me, for my life, for my environment, for society? Do what you have to do and take the consequences with it. I'll show you now the second one, so be aware. You'll hear the same song, because I want you to have this song in your hair, in your head, like an earworm, forever.
Do you hear the people singing the song of angry men? It is the music of a people who will not be slaves again. When the beating of your heart echoes the beating of a drum, there is a life about to start when tomorrow comes. À la volonté du peuple et à la santé du progrès. Das ist die Symphonie von Menschen, die nicht länger Sklaven sind. Arapaniazi, 命が始まる明日が来た時そうさすがAls mellig fortjockad Ki alltså en sort som get
Ifrån vår barrikad så kan man se ett framtidsland Så kom med och slåss, du ska kämpa med oss om du kan
Będziesz słuch śpiewa lud, co nie chce żyć w niewoli znów.
Alla de mensen die verdommen onder lange slaafde zee. When the beating of your heart echoes the beating of the drums, there is a life about to start when tomorrow comes.
Wenn du kämpfst mit ganzer Kraft, hat bald ein Ende alle Not.
Some will fall and some will leave. Will you stand up and take your chance? The blood of the mothers will water the meadows of France.
Kan du höra folkets sång? Ger en sång och marken dör. Sätta ditt liv ur staden vid i oss i virkesväv och liv. Och i tuppen Thomas Bruce var så stark en hjärteslag. Jag ska dig till och liv och den bygger där. Will you find it hard to say who will be strong and stand with me? Om ingen sönder själva själva världen kom aldrig vilja mig. Will you hear the people sing? Sing, will you hear the distant drums? It is the future that they bring tomorrow comes.
What are your feelings? I first thought when I found this website from Interrogatio that it was staged. Well, they do this because there's an audience for them. But then I started to watch these women's faces. This is real. And I have somebody in treatment to keep her going. This is real. How many thousands of women are disappearing? I've put Elke in it, 7 years. Is she in this network for these pictures, for adapts, paying people? Where is she? So many women are missing, just disappeared. Who are these women in this movie? Who are they? Where are they? Because you see that this is real torture. And I've put the pictures in from, I'll call her Lauren, with exactly the same wounds of what we see in the so-called staged thing. When you see now with Facebook, for all these people being awakened like we are, they take off YouTube movies. This stays on. Abuse of children, raping children, all these websites, they don't do anything. How long are we going to bear this? How long? And it's up to each of us to do what we have to do. Don't make a group because they changed the law, and when you're a group, you're terrorists. But we can be a group, each on our own, and they can't catch you then. They can't. So please, all of us, come back to yourselves. A question that is often asked is, where do these children come from? I told you the role of parents, but also the role of childcare. And a tremendous amount of children are disappearing while under childcare in institutions. And we see that because, and it must be going on for centuries, because recently, I think this week, they are now looking in, is it in England or in Ireland, to find 400 bodies of children under the age of 6 years in a group cemetery from nuns. They all, yeah, but it was, I think it's Scotland. And in Ireland last year, they found 800 skeletons and bodies of very, very young children. They don't care. In one of my books, In the Name of God, in God's name, I described that in Canada and in the United States, the nuns sold children they took away from families for $1 a piece to the pharmaceutical industry. What are we going to do? Sit back and think, it's awful. We have to do something. So there are schools also. Now in the Netherlands, it starts to come in the open. Schools where school teachers, women and men, during the day, rent the children to networks. I have a case of Etienne. I'll say his name because it's going to be in the media, in the alternative. I prefer ethic media, not alternative. It will be in the alternative media soon. I think it's Alastair who is doing investigation to what is happening in schools for so long. It was a little boy, he was 4 years old, totally normal, and he went to the toilet, and he was a perfect little boy, and all of a sudden he needed diapers, and he was regressing terribly. And the mother came to me from Holland, and she said, what do I have to do? My child says that they are abusing him in the basement of school, but also in Germany and in Belgium and in Holland, because it's from Holland, because it's all in a corner, Germany, Belgium, Holland. And okay, I started to work with that little boy, and she wanted to know, I don't know if you ever heard of the CD-ROMs of Zandvoort. No? These are CD-ROMs that has been discovered, and it went worldwide, you know, under the parquet, the floor of a man in, I think it was in Denmark or Sweden. I don't remember. Anyway, it's here somewhere. And there are thousands, 100,000 of children on it, and even murders and killings on children on it. And he had a network to sell this material. And many parents wanted to know, because their children talk about being photographed, wanted to know if their child was on the CD-ROMs. And I had copies of them. Now, the police in France said that it was of no use because the children on these pictures are from the Netherlands. Now, these parents had to go to Switzerland to be allowed to look at all these pictures if their child was appearing on them. In the Netherlands, they said to the parents, so don't say it's not a system. They said, but these children are all French. How do they know? They don't even know who these children are. So they blocked parents from recognizing their child. So this mother, she said, well, I would like to see, I said, they are awful to look at, Mathilde, I'm sorry, but she said, it's okay, I know what my child went through, and okay, she came a weekend at my place, and she was watching all these pictures for hours, and all of a sudden, we found him. And he's standing in front of a huge American fridge. Now, there is no doubt that it is this child, because, you know, the police say, well, it looks like it, but we have no proof it is him. And it has a deformation of the ankles. It has double ankles, both sides. His mother has it, and his grandfather has it. So it's genetic malformation, which you don't see unless they tell you that he has 2 knots here and 2 here. And you see them clearly on the picture. Not only you see that it is Etienne, but also you see the deformation. And when I showed him the picture when he was 7, he said, you know, but this is not a real fridge. It's a cardboard fridge. So he knew the details. Well, I can assure you, there's no way to go for the parents. No way to go. So it goes on, and they are destroying our children and our future, and the parents. And so schools are also involved. Daycare. In my first book, I dare not write about that because I thought, oh, so many parents who have very good care mothers for their babies and their children, they're going to take their children out. So I didn't mention it in my first book. But in the meantime, we had this scandal in the Netherlands of this man abusing babies. It was in the Netherlands, I think, yeah, with all these babies in the care center while the mothers are out working. But there too, they rent children to networks. Hospitals, there are many children, especially in England, United Kingdom, children that disappear. And then there are the children born in networks. Regina Louf, in the Dutroux case, X1, she had several children in the network. And at the age of 16, you could see it. I talked to her husband, Erwin. I know her very well, Regina. She had these streams, you know, these scars of pregnancy at the age of 16. I went with her to England, to Igli Gudjonsson, who is the specialist in false accusations. And he tested her. He said, she's not lying. She has even been participating in killing children and women. That's how we do it. But she had several children in the network that nobody knew about. They are not reported. Nobody knows. The girl you saw without face, with all the wounds, she had 9 children in the network. 9. I'll tell you something very disturbing, because I was myself even now disturbed. When she was at my place to hide, she said, I have to tell you something. I don't know how to tell you. Then I'm weaponing myself. Oh my God, what is this going to be? But I can't show it because they are desperate. And she said, I'm losing a lot of blood. And I said, what's going on? I said, do you have your period? No, she says, no. I said, what is happening then? Well, I find it myself hard to tell you, but I'm going to tell you so you have an idea. It took hours to get this out of her. She said that, I'm going to be short pain, okay? They cut up one of her babies, and they saw a part of the body in her vagina. And I said, why? She said, because then your body is pulling out, it wants to put out this strange material. And so your vagina goes open and closes, and they like it while they rape. You cannot imagine how pervert some people are. Now, the president of our association said, Chris said, you have to do something, Karen, he said, because one day she'll die here and then we're in deep, deep trouble. I said, but no, she doesn't want to go to the police, and I respect that, I understand, because it's not the ordinary policeman that is involved, but he has to report it to a higher level and all that. Then you come in the level where they do these things, where they are involved. So I understand she doesn't want me to contact the authorities. He said, yeah, but if she dies, what are we going to do? And I told her, I said, Lauren, listen, I'll have to do something because I am obliged as an expert and as a healthcare person to denounce when somebody is in danger. I am obliged. I'm not going to do it just like that, but you have to understand that there's a possibility that you die here in my office and then I'm going to be in big trouble because it's going to be me who done it to you. And I said, listen, I'm going to make a complaint against unknown X who threatened me. Okay? I'm not going to talk about you. I'm not going to give your name. And I went with my computer to the authorities in Brussels, the big specialists of computer crime. And I said, look, I am having death threats, serious death threats, and I want to make a complaint. Of course, they wanted to know, why are they threatening you? And I said, well, I have somebody in therapy. I'm not going to tell her her name or his name, but they want me to drop her. And that's what you see. Drop her, because if she dies, it will be your fault. I understood, you know. They're going to make it my fault. And so the only thing I want to do is make a complaint. Okay. They went upstairs with my computer, and I've been waiting there for hours and hours, and they came back, and okay, it was done. They copied these messages from my computer and my cell phone, and I went home, and I had a document. So they could not say I didn't denounce anything. And then the day after, I got a phone call that, oh, we are sorry, but it didn't work. I said, what do you mean it didn't work? I had my paper, so I didn't care. Well, we weren't able to copy it on a stick. Can you come back to Brussels? I said, no, it's more than 100 kilometers. No, I'm not coming back. Well, is it okay if we come to your place? I said, well, if you want to, it's okay. They came to my office, and, you know, I don't stay there. Our president of our association stayed because he wanted to know, how do they do that to find that IP address? We are not computer specialists, you know. And so he was sitting next to it, and he saw that this policeman was taking information out of my computer. I have a little file, Church and Crime. And he copied it and put it on his stick. And Chris said, what are you doing there? Why are you? Well, I put it back, he said. No, he said, you're going to put it back right now. You just take the threats. And after 2 hours, I said, in fact, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm trying to get these messages on this stick. I said, this is all. I'll do it for you. So I take these messages, and I indicate, okay, all this to the stick, and it was done. It took me 1 minute. He didn't even know how to do that. Well, you know, I can go on for hours like this about people presenting themselves as the big specialist, and they don't know anything. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to do it. But they are the law. They are the power. Well, get under it. Now, what can we do? First of all, get out of the victim role as soon as possible. Victim of whatever it is, get out of it. You have been a victim maybe, but you're not anymore. Let's start watching criminals and let them know. So people who are interested in having flyers, we are watching you, or it's up to you to say no, enough is enough. I know what the impact is on criminals when they have the feeling you're watching them. I can assure you they can't get him up anymore. No erection. They are frightened. And it's normal. If you see how they are watching us all the time, you're constant in a feeling of stress. And there are cameras everywhere to take us, if we make an infraction in the traffic or whatever. Now we have to use their system against them. Watch them and let them know you watch them. I asked 20 years ago, instead of their prevention to teach children to say no, I would like to have big flyers, big posters next to the highways with a father and a little child, the little daughter on the couch, and he's caressing the child while watching television, with the text, if you caress your child, is it for her or for you? When you're not concerned, you're not offended. Only those who have the feeling, what's this now? Why? Well, then you know. Be careful with somebody like that. We have to have these flyers all over the place. We are watching you. It's up to you to say no. Enough is enough. And spread them as much as you can. There are several of it. I've made a list of very catching. I don't know where it is now, but okay. My specialist is here. No, it's not that. I have the text of, do you hear the people sing, you know? I have to go somewhere else. Okay, let me see. No. Oh yeah, well you have this Denmark, this Danish.
Yeah, but this is your file.
Okay, well, okay. You can go to my website, which is not the website of ICMAC anymore because I was starting something else, but I'm going to put all these flyers on it, and it is www.writeyourownbook.com, because that was my intention to go on. But I continue doing what I do now, as long as I can. Well, thank you. It's www.write, a little line, your little line, own little line, book.com. And there you'll soon find a lot of flyers that has to be spread all over the planet. Watch them. Don't let them get away with it. And I know what the impact is on them from the feeling being watched. I can assure you they will not as easily abduct a child or rape a child anymore. Okay, are there questions? I know it's a big area and I have to be...
Please, I want to say before we ask questions to make them short and stand up when you ask the questions. So, who is the first one? Oh, no.
Wait, just a minute.
Sig det på engelsk for mig. Jeg vil bare fortælle, at i Danmark har vi en forening, eller jeg har ikke, men der er desværre en forening som Pedophile.
Now the translation, please.
Ja, men dansker, jeg kan ikke engelsk. Men altså, jeg vil bare fortælle til danskerne, i Danmark er der en forening for pædofile, og de skriver på deres side, at de elsker børn, og det er helt naturligt, det de gør, og det er helt lovligt. Så nu kan jeg ikke huske, hvad foreningen hedder, men den findes altså i Danmark. Og til dem, det der du sagde, så er det 70, der blev anholdt i Norge. Pædofilsag, som du var inde på. Det er ikke Danmark, Sverige, det er Norge.
Okay, can you have it translated a bit?
She said that there is an organization here in Denmark. Yeah, forening, but I don't know how you translate this exactly. And they are presenting themselves as helping children, and they say they love children and things like that. But you were quite not happy about it, you know. And then she said that actually the story you told, that you didn't remember if it was in Sweden or Denmark. Actually, it was Norway.
No, it's possible.
Yeah,
the more we will encourage this initiative.
There was a case in Norway, I think it was this winter, where they unraveled a pedophilic network and arrested about 70 or 80 people, something like that. That was a recent case.
Yeah.
In Denmark, there's a case from maybe 20 or 30 years ago. So I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, but Denmark and all these Scandinavian countries were the countries that 30 years ago produced child pornographic. Because I know it from rapists and child killers. They went to Holland to get the material from the Scandinavian countries under the counter. And that's where they feed their fantasies of raping children. Now the message that society is giving to these criminals, because they are hardly punished, is that, well, it can't be that dramatic because nobody goes to prison. So we are feeding them with the idea that it's not that bad. You know, we have to stop this. It is very bad. It destroys people for life. So that's the responsibility, of course, of the Nordic countries 30 years ago. Now with the internet, it's all over the place. This man
We're
had
just going to make 2 questions. And then if you have more questions, then you can make it this afternoon at when we have the panel discussion.
My name is Ole Gerström. You asked a question, what happened to those women we saw here who had been tortured?
Yeah.
Well, I suggest you can get the answer in the literature. Read Cathy O'Brien, David Icke, etc. It has been described in detail what happens to those people. They are killed in satanic rituals where their throat is cut and the participants, they drink the blood coming from this person. They die from it.
Yeah, we know that. But there are others also using this for films on the internet, and they sell this gruesome material. But they give the impression that it is staged, that it's not real. I don't believe this when I see the fear in the eyes of these women and the horror they're going through. And anyway, even if it is staged, they hurt these women. And we cannot allow this. They hurt them. But in my first book 20 years ago, I had the figures of the disappearance of young women in Belgium. And it were, if I remember well, 1,400. We are a small country like Denmark. You know, we have 10 million people. It were about 1,490, I think, disappearances a year, when after 10 years they had no news. This means that we are talking about almost 15,000 women in 10 years. Where are they? Don't tell me they just started another life somewhere. And don't tell me our governments are not aware of this. 15,000 in 10 years. What's 10 years? The older you get, the faster it goes. But nevertheless, 15,000 women in Belgium where there's no news after 10 years about them. Where are they? Now we have the organ traffics. That's what with one of my books, you know, Little Sinners, Church and Child Traffic. I did some investigation in the disappearance of newborn babies. And my God, many of these newborn babies are sold to satanic networks too. And I called, because it's these children are so called from naissance sous X, born under X, mother unknown, you know, that were pregnant women in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. They went to France. It was the only country where you could deliver your baby under X. And now in France there are 500,000 children looking for their roots. Now, part of them went in adoption industry, because it's all about the money. And I knew that there was an investigation going on in the north of France, because it's especially the borders, you know. The north of France is the border with Belgium, then you have the border with Switzerland and part of Germany, Spain, a part of Italy. Especially there were the hospitals where you could go and deliver your baby and you just had to sign with an X. Of course, many of the nuns who kept these pregnant women in basements and everywhere hidden, because it was a shame to be pregnant and not being married. They brought these women when they had to deliver to these hospitals. They waited, and then they brought the mother back, and bye-bye. And in France, we're talking about 500,000 who have been adopted, sold. But I called the captain of the police department, gendarmerie in France, to talk about this. And because there, they started to investigate the disappearance of boys. Why? Because at the age of 18, they were supposed to join the army. And they were not there. They were born, but it was desertion. because they were not in the healthcare, they were not adopted, they were nowhere. And they started to investigate different in the area. So I called him and I said, I want to talk about these babies that disappeared after birth. And he said, oh yeah, he said, those children that were used for organ traffic. I wasn't talking about that, you know. I said, well, yeah, entre autres, also. And so I had the appointment and I drove to France, and when I came there, he said, I'm not allowed to talk about it. So they are involved in all these things. It's not possible otherwise. In Spain, they stole the babies from mothers, the newborn, and they put them in families pro-political signature, you know. So these children were raised by people who were in favor of the president or the king, or I don't know. It's all also, they are reunited now, 100,000 of mothers who felt that their baby was not dead. A week ago, I think it was in Scotland too, a woman who since 40 years says, my baby was not dead. And now after 40 years, they opened the coffin, and indeed, there's a rope in it from a baby, but there's no baby, there's nothing. So this child, mothers feel it, many mothers feel it, my child is not dead. In Spain, they said to the mothers, your child, it's still dead. It's born, but it was dead. And the mothers that did not believe it, they go very far, these people. They wanted to see their dead baby. They took a baby from the freezer, showed it, and put it back. And for all these mothers, they showed the same frozen baby. Look, it's dead. You can't believe it. If you haven't been in this area for all these years, you can't believe what is going on. And really, we have to stop this. It has to stop. And it's up to us to stop it. We do not have to think that we can stop this in a few years, because they took centuries to get where they are now. But we can do it quite fast. We can do it fast by doing each our part of the work. And then I think we can quite fast change everything. So let's do this. Let's do this. Okay. Thank you. Oh, thank you, everybody. It's okay? Wasn't it not too gruesome? Yeah.
Carine, that was, I must say, the most powerful presentation I think we had yet on Open
We're
Mind
all
Conference.
concerned.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm sure many of you still have some questions, but we have a long panel debate at 4 o'clock. So please remember them, and we take it at 4 o'clock.